Bro is not happy. Kieran, one of the new characters that we get to meet in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet's DLC. And while I think initial reactions to his reveal in a trailer were pretty neutral after everyone's actually had time to play the game, oh boy, we're all looking at him a lot differently. So the story of the Teal Mask sees us, the protagonist, being chosen to attend a school trip to the land of Kitakami alongside, well, a group of randos. But I mean, these are some pretty iconic randos. Anyway, after arriving in Mosui Town, we meet these students from Blueberry Academy who will be joining us on this trip, Carmine and her younger brother Kieran. Our first meeting with them gives us a pretty similar vibe to what you could draw from their personalities based on the trailers. Carmine is abrasive and the one who does most of the talking, while Kieran is shy and curious. So much so that he ends up becoming our partner during the orienteering assignment because he's so fascinated by the protagonist who waltzes into town. And I was starting to like this little portion here at the beginning of the game. I had already saved the world in the base story, so I was ready for a little relaxing time where I could make a new friend and meet some new Pokemon. Though I do want to say that I called the whole thing about Kieran having an interest or connection with Ogerpon in my trailer analysis video. Pretty on the nose and obvious, but I'm just glad I noticed he wore the Ogerpon mask at the festival, and that his character design literally having hair across his face like a mask actually meant something. I also predicted that the details about the story passed down in the village about Ogerpon weren't entirely true, and that it was actually the victim in this situation. Kieran believes that also, but I find that kind of interesting. He doesn't know the truth about the story for sure like we would as the player thinking outside of the lore within the game. From his perspective, he is genuinely the odd one out, seeing a story of heroic Pokemon fighting off an evil ogre and identifying with the villain most of all. Again, he was right about it in the end, but it makes you think. Anyway, yeah, Ogerpon itself turns out to be an innocent little baby, and the player along with Carmine end up seeing it at the festival, deciding to keep it a secret from Kieran. Here I've noticed a good amount of people not liking this moment, and I've got some complicated feelings, but I'll say that it does make sense for Carmine to want to protect her younger brother for the moment. It genuinely would not be safe to run up into the mountain after an unknown Pokemon in the middle of the night. As an older sibling, I think I can understand her thought process, though I think it would have been nice to let him in on the secret a bit sooner than we actually did. In the end, I'm fine with how things played out because it all fits the story that Game Freak wanted to tell with these characters. The only thing is that as a video game, it kind of makes the player feel like we don't have much of a choice in the matter. Of course, when it comes to Pokemon games, we never really get to contribute to the story in a meaningful way, but this is just another piece in the recent games where it's becoming even more obvious and a bit annoying. But like I said, I would prefer it to play out this way because I really liked how this point in the story causes the two new characters to basically shift. Now we spend more time with Carmine trying to solve the mystery of the ogre and give its mask back, and she becomes our friend. Not really wanting to admit it at first, but by the end of things she learns to value people from outside Kitakami, and honestly I feel like we've gotten closer to her in the span of a few days than we did Nemona in the span of a week or so in the main story. Meanwhile, Kieran is broken by all of this. I think he had still been compulsive and a bit entitled through the whole thing, but you do feel a little sorry for him. The new friend he made from the school trip is now spending more time with his older sister. The Pokemon he had loved from the stories is still around, but doesn't want to be his partner Pokemon and instead chooses that friend as well. At the same time, he begins honing his skills as a Pokemon trainer, initially inspired by the protagonist, now jealous of them and wanting to best them. And I mean, that final battle is no walk in the park. Getting to see just how much he was able to improve his team throughout the course of the story was really cool, albeit terrifying. In the end, it is a video game, and for the story to progress, he has to lose the battle. And so Ogerpon gets to be my friend now, and it's really even sadder the more you think about it.
It should have been me, not him!
Going into the DLC, we know that there's no way Kieran is going to keep Ogerpon. It's the player's world and everybody else is just living in it. No matter how hard anyone else tries, we'll always be the champion, we'll always be the one to save the day, we'll always be the one to befriend the legendary Pokemon. But I really like that now we're exploring a little more into a character who was close to being the one and almost maybe deserved it. We sort of saw this touched on with how Hop wanted to be the Galar champion just like his brother, but overall there were other focuses in the story of Sword and Shield. Here in the Teal Mask, Kieran is the main focus, though I don't feel too sorry for him because I think he wasn't emotionally mature enough in the end. I mean, he takes losing terribly and vows to get revenge by the end of things. It was kind of a matter of circumstances, and Carmine's overprotectiveness hurt him in the end, as well as Grandpa just being a weirdo. Oh, this story has been passed down for generations, and I won't tell Kieran right now because the time isn't right. Why isn't the time right now, Grandpa? We should all be hating on Grandpa. I vow to be his #1 hater. Anyway, it is really interesting how this character's arc isn't even done yet. We'll be continuing the story in the next DLC expansion, and honestly, I can't believe we never expected this with how he was turned away hiding his face in the promotional artwork. I feel like this period of time between each expansion actually helps to enhance the experience. If we were able to just complete the whole thing in one run, sure, it would have been complete, but giving time to breathe lets the gravity of the emotions settle in and it'll have more impact when followed through on. You could play the entirety of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire in the span of a day, and see Wally go from weak and frail to a competent and confident trainer within those 24 hours. When it comes to Kieran, there's an art to staggering the release of the story, and Game Freak is taking advantage of that. I am not ready to face him again. Watch this dude have a fully competitive team with level rounding being used in the battle. You know, I do just want to reiterate that Carmine was not completely blameless in all of this, and it goes beyond just her being overprotective. She was straight up rude to Kieran many points in the story. She is called out for this, but it does just kind of show that that's one of her character flaws, and on top of that, hey look, the grandpa just kind of lets her do that without giving her any sort of punishment for it. So hey, we can still also blame grandpa. But I think it's still pretty clear that Kieran has pre-existing complexes that just kind of come to light in this whole situation when literally everything goes wrong for him. You can see this in how he doesn't really seem to have a problem with Carmine at the end of the story. It's more so with the player character who took Ogerpon from him in his eyes and is stronger trainer than him in every way that he sees he needs to overcome. And so that was the story of the Teal Mask and Kieran. Relatable, compelling, tragic, and still unfolding. Like I said, I was a fan of what they did with the characters and the story of the Teal Mask, but let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm basically done with what I wanted to talk about based on the first wave of DLC, save for a few videos, especially if you comment and want more, but for the most part, I'm pretty satisfied. So if you enjoyed our time in the land of Kitakami, I've set up my store on Redbubble with designs based on a certain Red Moon bear, as well as something appropriate for the spooky season referencing the cursed cartridge that has plagued my live streams for a long time. Anyway, I'm gonna be off to train for the rematch of the century. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, especially the great Gators, Cheeseburger Lasers, Justin R, Cosmo Zero, Lil Swiss, Meme Supreme, Mochizuki Yoru, Nomad Nobi, Phantom, Quago, Taishirai, Volity, and Pastel Blood. If you would like to support, get your name shouted out here as well as access to emotes for comments, live streams, and sometimes early videos, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter as well for more memes. Anyway, this has been GatorX. I'll catch you all later.
Start your adventure together in the Pokémon trading card game Scarlet and Violet. Coming soon. Products sold separately, cards vary by pack.